See I just wanted to trigger those who were writing about you. I wanted to trigger that. Don't worry. Don't worry. The book of Genesis, please. Genesis chapter 48. Genesis chapter 48. Genesis chapter 48, verse 1. Now it came to pass after this thing. Now it came to pass after this thing that Joseph was told, indeed your father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. May the good Lord, the blessings of the Lord. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you. We don't have the necessary capacity to interpret your word. But we pray for the ministry of your Holy Spirit. Yes. I don't think this conference or this congress needs a Mothowakae or another preacher, but I think this conference needs divine visitation. Amen. Therefore, we're asking divinity, please visit us. Father, we are not here to play or entertain anybody. But we just want to feel your presence in the midst of us. Therefore, Father, we are asking that, Lord, may your Holy Spirit fall afresh on us. That's our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Amen. Genesis chapter 48, verse 1. Now it came to pass after these things that Joseph was told that your father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. I hope you all know the story. But I'm quite interested in the structuring of the verse after these things. And why should the writer mention after these things? I think the writer could have just said, now Joseph was told that the father is sick, but he makes mention of these things. And I'm interested to know, before I can get to the text, what are these things? Genesis chapter 48, verse 1, the location, Joseph is in Egypt. He's not only in Egypt, but he's the prime minister of Egypt. This is after these things. But what are these things? These things is the pit in which the brothers throw him into. And I want to say tonight, in Genesis chapter 48, verse 1, he's now the prime minister of Egypt. He's in the palace. But in chapter 38, going down, he is in the pit. And so I want to submit and suggest to all of us tonight that before you can get to your Genesis chapter 38, you ought to pass through the pit. And many of us avoid pits because we want to rush to palaces. But hear the words of the preacher tonight, you can't make it to the palace unless you pass through the pit. From the pit to the palace. And I say this, please don't avoid that pit. It might be your transport to the palace. Many of you have avoided pits, and that's why you have not landed in your palaces. What are these things? Yes, sir. After Potiphar's wife tempted Joseph, after these things. After Joseph was in the prison, after these things. He now finds himself as a prime minister of Egypt. Even in high places, problem can also arrive to you. So the Bible says the young boy is told, your father is sick, and the boy does not only take himself to go and see the father, he takes his two sons. But remember, the father thinks he's dead because they gave him his coat with blood on it. And so when Joseph arrived, the Bible says in Genesis chapter 48, Jacob found strength to sit on his bed. He was about to die. And he realizes that Joseph is alive. Not only is Joseph alive, but he's a prime minister of Egypt. Not only is he a prime minister of Egypt, he has his two sons. But look at what Jacob is about to do. This is the last benediction of Jacob. And the Bible says, he says to Joseph, I see, I'm fine with you. I'm done with you. Bring me your two sons. That's where the problem starts. The Bible says, and the two sons are brought that brought to Jacob, and Jacob finds himself to sit on the bed. As he sits on the bed, the Bible says he was blind. If you read that story very well, there's a blind man in Genesis chapter 48 who is blessing. And the Bible says he sits on his bed and says, Ephraim and Manasseh, come to me. I'm about to bless you. But before I can enjoy the text, please let me say this to all of us, that God's favor always has a tendency of being on the side of the unfavored. God's favor has a tendency of going to those who don't deserve it. And so the Bible says, friends, Jacob brings the two sons to him, and the Bible says he takes the right hand to Ephraim and the left to Manasseh. And the Bible says, and Jacob blessed them. We know the whole story on how Joseph interrupts the whole service and tries to move the hand to appropriate places. And as he moves the hand to the appropriate places, the Bible says, Jacob says to him, I know what I'm doing. And changes the hands and switches them to the place he sees fit. And the Bible says, and Ephraim was blessed and Manasseh was not blessed. For God's favor is always on the side of those who don't deserve it. And the Bible says, that's where the story ends. But back up with me, and we pick up 3 lessons and we can go and sleep. 3 lessons. 3 lessons, friends. Always listen to the preacher when they move. If the preacher has no direction, step out of it. Come on. So the Bible says, just 3 points. The Bible says there's a blind man who sits on the bed and is about to bless. But only divinity can bless. That's right. So Jacob sits in the position of divinity. And the Bible says there's a blind man who blesses before he can die. But wait a minute, the Bible says he's blind. And when I read the text, I concluded and said, there's a lesson here. For always when God has to bless us, God becomes blind. To the reasons that make him not to bless us. First lesson of the night in temple, God blesses blindly. I did not say God is blind, but God blesses blindly. He became blind to the reasons of not blessing him. Me and you know that we have things that we don't deserve. But God became blind to the reasons of not blessing us and blessed us anyway. You know that you went to places you were never supposed to go to. But God woke you up this morning and became blind to the reasons that made you not to bless you. Hear the rest of the preacher tonight. God blesses blindly. Maybe you're not here like me, but you know. There are many people who deserve better things than you. Who are better than you. But God chose to give you favor and became blind to the reasons. Me and you know that we drive cars that we don't deserve. We have degrees that we don't deserve. There were better people, but God chose us. So he became blind. Yes, sir. And I say this to all of us tonight here. Just look at God. He became blind. You know, it's a risk that you are alive. It's a risk. But God became blind to the reasons of not blessing you. Yes, sir. First lesson of the night, God blesses. Hallelujah. Second principle of the night, God blesses beyond bylaws. According to the Midrash, according to ancient Hebrew semantics, the Genesis, Rabbah, and so forth, all the ancient semantics from the Hebrew times, they have a tendency of making known what is not known. So Genesis, Rabbah suggests, Pastor Maile, that actually, according to Jewish laws, Manasseh, whenever he was born, the blessing belonged to him. It's a law. It's a Jewish law. So Genesis chapter 48, if I had time, I would have titled this chapter, The Breaking of Things.
Yes, sir.
According to the law, Manasseh deserves the blessing, Ephraim does not. But Jacob breaks this Jewish law so that Ephraim can receive the blessing. It did not, maybe I should make it simple in other terms. Whenever you look at the ministry of Jesus, whenever Jesus performed a miracle, a law was broken. You remember the woman with the issue of blood? The Bible says she just touched the hem of his garment. That's breaking the law. How do we have a pharmaceutical company on your garment? It's breaking the law of biology and physics. How do you carry a pharmaceutical company on your garment? That's breaking the law. You remember when you fed the 5,000? That's breaking the law of mathematics. How do you feed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fishes? That's breaking the law. You remember when he resurrected Lazarus? That's breaking the law of justice. How do you take death to life and life to death? That's breaking the law. Whenever you see Jesus performing miracles, whenever you see God moving in your life, ask yourself, how many laws did you break to arrive at my position? God, for me and you to be also here this evening is because God has broken some laws. Let me push it further. Have you been in an accident before? When some people are injured, they call an ambulance. Have you seen that? And the ambulance, for it to arrive where the problem is, it has to break the laws of the road in which it travels to arrive at those who have a problem. How many of us tonight can testify that God broke some laws to arrive at our position? God has a tendency of breaking laws for us. And that's why I did not understand why they were fascinated discussing a video of children dancing in church. You know, Christians who don't understand the movement of God have a time to discuss people dancing in the wrong locations. If I was them, I could have shut that whole page and discussed how thankful we are to see them dancing in the presence of God. But I'm not worried. Let me move. Now let's close this thing. I don't preach long sermons. I don't believe in everlasting preaching. Everlasting gospel. Let's close this thing. Let's close this thing. Let's close this thing. So the last point, listen. Remember we said he blesses blindly? And he blesses beyond bylaws. The last principle of the night, he blesses beyond boundaries. Look at the story very well. So Jacob takes the 2 sons and places them in front of him and takes the right hand to Ephraim and the left to Manasseh. And look at the movement of Joseph. He removes the right hand from Ephraim and places it on Manasseh. But if there was someone who was supposed to know how the favor of the Father operates, it's supposed to be Joseph.
Yes.
For a few chapters back, it was the same hands that had the coat of many colors placed on his back. He did not have a problem when the coat was placed on him, but he had a problem when the hands are placing the favor on the different person. We did not have a problem when you bought cars. When we buy cars, we become accountants. Can he afford it? But no problem when you are buying cars. It's like when the other pastor temple is moved to a Devon Central. He starts now discussing how actually God is moving. When he sent to London, temple is in Devon Central. He starts discussing how temple will not make it in the city. When the favor of God has moved to the next person, you have a problem. But when it's seated on you, you don't have a problem. Next friend, can I say this? God's favor has nothing to do with characters. But we are looking at your character, how you are behaving when others receive. We are looking at you, how you behave when others receive. We are looking at you. When you receive, you want us to clap hands and praise. When we receive, you are quiet. We are looking at you. We are looking at you. Tomorrow you want to come and fast. All of a sudden you want prayer and fasting because the temple has made it hard. Wait. We are praising, for we have received. Let us enjoy our moments. But let's do this and close it. So Jacob moves the hands, right? And he says to Joseph, I know what I'm doing. He said, listen, be careful of moving God's hand in places God's hands want to be. God knows what he's doing. Be careful of moving the hand of God when God's hand wants to be somewhere. So I says, I know what I'm doing, and so he crosses the hands. If I was still young, I would have discussed the alphabet in which the hands crosses. The Greek alphabet, Chris or X, coming from the Greek word Christos. So when he crosses the hands, I looked at the narrative very well and I said, but Genesis chapter 48 is not the only place where hands are switched. Wait a minute, Ephraim, I see your issue. But Ephraim, come to Golgotha. Where God switched his hands. It was supposed to be us, but God switched it. It was supposed to be Barnabas, but God switched it. Can I push it further in this place? You were supposed to die in the accident, but God switched it. You were supposed to lose your life, but God switched it. You were supposed to lose things around you, but God switched it. Allow me to present to you tonight a God that has a tendency of switching things on our behalf. Carry on, sir. So the Bible says, Genesis chapter 48 ends in this manner, when the hands were switched. And I think we should also conclude here tonight. It is my prayer that God switches hands for us. Pastor Mahili, please come. I think God needs to switch a young person's life tonight. Giving your life into drugs. You are consuming things that you are not supposed to consume. But tonight God needs to switch things on your behalf in this place. You know yourself. I don't want you to go back home to where you come from, Lazi, wherever, Nambita, the same way you came. And if you are there and you say, Lord, I need you to switch things on my behalf, come. We're not here to play. We did not come all this far. Did not drive 7 hours to come and play. Come. If you say, I need my life to change, God needs to switch things on my behalf tonight. Come. 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 sister. Come, my brother, my sister, come. Come. Come, my brother. If you say, I need my life to change tonight, come.